Yes. Okay, great. So I'm really excited to have you all here. I really want to thank Jane and Debbie for their assistance to get us here at the library. We have a few of us here. As you can see, there's, I don't know if you can see well, but Mark Van Skyver, Melissa Foster, Stan Jasper, myself. Vicki Hawley is off to the side. And Kim Miller, thank you.
She's tired.
The Ingrid is here, and Bill and Jane. So because the library camera on the device isn't working, we have to, we're right now using our guest speaker's computer so that you can see us for a few minutes. But once she starts her presentation, then we will go away, but we'll still be here. So anyway, hope you're all doing well. As we get started here, and I know there's a lot of things happening. There's Idaho Gives that's happening, and that's going to be down at 5 at Lost Grove. No.
Yes, Lost Grove Brewing in that area, the Lusk District.
In the Lusk District. So come on down and say hello and enjoy the evening and send in your donations. How's that? So, okay. We've had a tour this morning that a few of us were on, and with South Junior High, and that was an awesome group. There's another thing they're continuing on with Elena at the memorial right now. And I'm not sure if the afternoon tour, do you know, did that get canceled?
No, it's happening. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's happening.
So then there's another afternoon tour. So a few of them are involved in that too. So super busy week that has been going on. And thank you all for your parts that you've all helped with. So before we get with our guest speaker, just one item of agenda that we're going to go on, and that is our docent representative for the board of the Wassmuth Center. And I want to thank Steve Pollock, who is willing to continue on with that role and to be our representative. He served us well for the last 3 years. And so we thank you all for your support with him. And Steve.
Thank you all for your support, and I will communicate items of interest to and from the board on your behalf. And there are a lot of educational programs going on, of which several of you are participating in for curriculum and development, as well as our tours, which are part of all of the educational programs, and other board news as appropriate. So I appreciate it, and do be considering down the road, if you have some interest. I'd be glad to talk with anybody for future board representation.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. We appreciate it. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. So for today, one of the things that as we are starting to reunite with tour groups and interacting more with the community and just the changing diversity that's within our community. And so one of the things that we thought during this time is that this is a great time to really be looking at what it is, the words that we use during our tours, and knowing that we always want to be inclusive of people. We're so intent on being able to share our message, but some of our message deals with the Holocaust and with violence, with elimination, with bullying. And within our tour groups, many people may have experienced that. And especially now with what's going on in Ukraine, we just had a young gal who was on a tour, I believe last week, who was from Ukraine. And so talking about all of this and seeing how much that comes, you know, to her heart, to her core. So we just felt, and I appreciate Mark Van Skyver for bringing our attention to the need to really look at how we might be able to enhance our tours to be more trauma sensitive. As I mentioned earlier, it's how do we walk our tour members into our memorial safely, and how do we walk them out safely so that, yes, they receive the message of what has gone on. They understand that there might be some difficult topics that are raised, but also when they leave, that there is hope and that there are things that we can do to make our world better. And so that is what brought us to this day. And so we reached out within the community, and I was very fortunate to find our guest speaker, who is Beth Rutten Turner. She is a licensed clinical social worker with St. Alphonsus Center for Global Healing. And so she has, besides being a counselor and seeing clients that are there at St. Al's, she also goes out into the community and gives presentations and has spent time on our website, and she and I talking about what the work is that we do here at the center. So I will now turn it over to Beth. So Beth, thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah. And real quick, at least show my face so you can all see me. Thank you so much for inviting me. I have so much respect for all the work that you all do. And so it's great as a community for us to be thinking about, like, how do we take some of these really heavy topics and very safely, but also like with respect to the topic, bring them into the community because it's important so that we don't repeat the things that have happened in the past. So I'm going to start the PowerPoint. Sorry, you all might lose us.
And if you're not muted, please make sure you've muted your yourselves.
Here we go. Okay. Oh, and now we lost you all too.
Oh, they're there. They're
Okay, they're there. Sorry
They're all
that.
there, right? Someone unmute and make sure you're there. Are you there?
We're here.
I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we're here, yeah.
I just muted ourselves.
We can't see you anymore, so you can't see us, we can't see you. This is trust.
Yes, good
Always still
point.
here.
You're gonna be trying to see you. So I thought such an important part of the work that you all do is to really think about the mutual restoration and healing that we're attempting to do for our community. And so I'm hoping that today we can sit together and think about what's wellness and then what is trauma. Because if we only focus on the trauma part, then we don't really know where we're headed. And then talk about the impacts of trauma on us individually, but also as a community, and then like as generations go. And you all know so much about that, working with the Holocaust Center and like understanding the impacts that's had on the future generations. And then I hope that we can have some time to really discuss the principles of trauma-informed approach. We can start to think about, now, how do we do that when we're giving tours? How do you, again, really respect the information and do it authentically and make sure that the participants that are on the tours are safe? So please, as we're going through this, please take care of yourself. If you need to get up and move or stretch, use the bathroom. There's snacks here. I hope you all have snacks that you can nourish yourselves as we're going, because it really is important to take care of ourselves as we're talking about such heavy topics. And then please ask questions as we go so that I can make sure that I'm really meeting the needs of what you all are doing. So I first just want to give a land acknowledgement. We are currently, all of us in the room at least, are on the traditional lands of the Shoshone-Bannock peoples. I ask that you join me in acknowledging the Shoshone-Bannock community, their elders, both past and present, as well as their future generations. I acknowledge that Boise was founded upon exclusions and erasures of many Indigenous peoples, including those whose land that we're on right now. This acknowledgement demonstrates a commitment towards working to dismantle and then heal from the settler colonialism. I'd also like to recognize that on April 6th, it was the 28th anniversary of the Rwanda genocide. And then just last week was the Holocaust remembrance. So we have a lot of heavy things that we're holding, both on the physical land we're on and also in our hearts and minds.
Excuse me, are you moving through the slides yet?
Yes, can you not see them?
No.
No, you're stuck on the title slide.
Oh. Well, let's see what we do about that.
There's the land acknowledgement.
Yes.
I can see the land acknowledgement slide now.
The acknowledgement slide changed. Oh, let me see.
It didn't change.
And it's not the full screen.
Oh, it's not the full screen?
No.
1 second.
I've now got a full screen of Tom Rogers. Hi, Tom.
And how are you? Good.
Good to see you.
I'm in Los Angeles and realized, it's an hour earlier.
Aha.
How's that? Can you see him now? You see the honoring my teacher slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Full screen.
All right. Thumbs up.
Let's see.
Yeah,
There we go. Okay. I think we're figuring this out. I also just really want to acknowledge that I'm a learner first, and that my understanding of trauma-informed care, as well as a lot of the other principles that we work with at our clinic, are really shaped by not just research, but also just connection with people, by talking about these things, by being interested. And so all of this stuff I'm presenting, it's not easy to say exactly where I learned it. There's not really a reference page. It's all collective. It's all of the work that we all do together. So one thing that I think is important is that we really think about the difference between a trauma-informed approach and the trauma-specific services. And really what we're looking for is the trauma-informed approach, so that we're all really realizing in our organizations that that trauma does affect individuals, it affects families, and it affects communities. And we want to be able, as community members and as organizations, to be able to notice signs and symptoms of trauma and to be able to respond. And it doesn't mean exactly on your tour that you would need to be able to respond, but how do we set this all up well So we have policies and procedures. And then, of course, we want to avoid re-traumatization if at all possible. And it isn't always possible. You're talking about really heavy topics, but when possible, if we can try to avoid that. And then trauma-specific services are more like what I do, like in my practice, that we're really working on the healing parts of it. So we're not asking anyone to heal any trauma. We're just trying to, as a community, be able to really talk about these heavy topics in a safe way. So what is wellness? It's hard, I think, often in trauma-informed like presentations and things, we go straight into talking about what trauma is, what does it look like, but then we don't know where we're headed and like, what does it really mean if we're all doing well together as a community? And so at the clinic that I work for at St. Al's, we really see wellness as being a whole body approach. And so now there's been some more research, and this is kind of very much rooted in a lot of Indigenous knowledge and a lot of like lived experience. And now science is finally catching up to the things that like our grandparents would teach us, and that we thought like, oh, but that's not science. Like that doesn't actually make any sense. And now we're realizing that it does. So what they're realizing is that really we have three brains that are giving us information all the time. And so we have a physical brain, and that's living in our gut. And so it's getting all the information, like our five senses. It's all the like touch, it's temperature on our skin, it's hunger, it's not enough sleep. It's all of those things that our body is picking up from around us and then giving information to the rest of our body. So it's picking up on all the things around us. And we often, in a lot of different communities and cultures, we have sayings like, oh, I just had this gut feeling. And that's what that is. It's that knowledge that's just like, we can't maybe really understand. It's not like a logical thing, but we just know this. It's just in us. And then the next is our emotional and relational brain. And so that's more in our chest and in our heart. And so what they found is that there's this nerve that runs from our brain down into our body. And so the information from our physical brain is then being sent to our emotional brain and our heart, and it's getting more information. So here we're starting to like connect it to our thoughts and feelings. It's about like relating and connecting to other people. And so we're starting to then take whatever information our gut was telling us, and we're making stories about it. And we're trying to understand what's happening, but in an emotional way. And then the last step is that it then goes up to our cognitive brain. And so finally, we're starting to then make meaning out of things. And so all this stuff is happening in our bodies and in our hearts before it ever makes it to our brain. And so we really need all three of them to be healthy and aligned so that we're able to then go out in the world and like have relationship and connection and be able to think through things and make meaning of stuff, and also feel settled so you can sleep, so you can eat, so you can feel comfortable in the world, exercising, all of those things. And so it's not just about like, can I think through this thing? Can I cognitively understand it? It's really being able to like emotionally make stories and make sense of it and let it like physically settle in our body. And so when these three things are all really in alignment, then we're able to really be well and be a person out in the community. But kind of any questions about that or any, yeah.
Well, recently, I understand that the stomach is also involved in, they are saying 80% of our, it's connected to the brain and also 80% of our health.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that when you say heart, you might include the stomach. I mean,
Exactly.
Thinking that as well.
Yeah, that it's all the information that, so this nerve, the technical term is the polyvagal nerve, but a lot of people call it the wandering nerve or the soul nerve, that it's coming, like it's getting all the information from our gut. And this is also where a lot of our dopamine is actually produced, is in our stomach, and it's sending the information up.
What's the name of that nerve again?
Polyvagal?
Polyvagal?
Yes, yes. Yeah, yep, exactly. And then it's traveling up. And so now we're starting to relate and connect to whatever it is that our body was trying was feeling out in the world, and then I can think about it. And so it's all going up, and then it's motor neurons that go back down. So then, like, as it went up, then like I get to do something about it. And sometimes it makes it all the way to the cognitive brain, and sometimes it doesn't because it's a scary thing, or I need to flee, I need to fight. And so then it didn't actually often make it to our cognitive brain. Other thoughts or questions? I'm trying not to make it too sciencey, but also I think it's really important to understand, like if you know much about like the chakra system, like that's totally in line with the vagus nerve, and that it goes up, like all the information, our safety and connection are the lower ones. And then it's more about the relating and the speaking. And then finally, it's the more like spiritual and like making sense of things. So it really is in line with so much like ancient wisdom, and now science can like put it on a slide. Any other thoughts or questions? Can't see them. Okay, so then if we know what wellness is, and that we're really trying to help our bodies feel that they're in a safe place, that our heart is in a good place so we can connect, and then finally our brains, we can make meaning out of things. Trauma then is when there's breakdowns in that system. And so there's 3 different forms of trauma that we often talk about. So there's the individual trauma that like something physically happened to my person, or I saw something that made me feel like my life was in danger. And so that's on a very individual level. But then as we've all been living through the pandemic in the last couple of years, we also know that there's a lot of collective trauma. This could also be like when a tornado goes through and like flattens a town, or like hurricanes, that this isn't just happening to me as an individual, but it is a collective trauma that we're all holding together, that our lives were in danger, that something could have happened that puts us at risk. And then there's the historical and intergenerational trauma. And this is what you all are helping to teach our community. And it's the passing down of this information, that it happened in the past, but it's still really impacting us. It's impacting their kids, it's impacting grandkids. And as we think about like the land that we're on right now, the complete trauma and genocide that happened on this land, that also was passed down to the people that are living in our community today.
Yeah, and you know, with the political climate right now, and asking what we can't teach in school
Yes.
is a close the door or turn our back on historical trauma. And a great number of people in this country suffer from that, and by telling what we can teach or can't teach
Yes.
is a slap in the face, and that re-traumatizing them again.
You're so right, because if we're not recognizing it and looking at it as, like in Germany, that they teach about the Holocaust, and in Rwanda, they have Remembrance Day, and everybody takes a day to really stop and think about it. And in South Africa with apartheid, like they have the Truth and Reconciliation. There's been lots of ways that people have tried to recognize the collective trauma, so that hopefully it doesn't become such a like lived historical intergenerational trauma. And here, instead, we often try to do the opposite. Don't talk about it, don't teach it, stuff it down, keep going, keep moving. For many of us, that's the way that we were raised. Like you just go forward, look to the future, don't worry about it. That was the past. And so it's allowing it to continue. Any other thoughts about like the 3 kinds of trauma and like trauma definition? There's been a few researchers, like Amber Gray. She talks about trauma as being an attentional disorder. And so it's shifting our attention from ourself and our stability to fear, because then we're constantly scanning around us to see, like, is this safe? Am I in a safe place? Where are the exits? Is it too dark? Dark is where the trauma happened. And so it's shifting from being able to like live and be in the present to constantly scanning for fear instead. So that's something you might notice for some people on the tours, that if they've lived through something like this, or if like their parents did, and so they've heard about it, that like instead of feeling like, oh, this is a story, this thing that I'm learning, Instead, they're already starting to kind of scan and look for like, is this safe? Like, this doesn't feel safe. And they're more about protecting in that moment. This quote is from Russ Menicum. He's been doing a lot of work specifically with the Black American community in historical and community trauma. And so what he says is that trauma is often, if it's decontextualized in a person, it looks like personality. So if you're constantly looking for fear, then we start to put labels on somebody like, oh, but they're just an angry person. Oh, they're super lazy. But it might not be any of that. It's not maybe their personality. It's that their body is still just trying to find safety. Trauma decontextualized in a family looks like family traits. And so often, like if maybe grandma survived something awful as she's raising her kids, then she's trying to keep them safe. And if she never talked about what she went through with her kids, then it starts to look like this is just how our family operates. And then we pass that down to the next generation. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with it, but it gets confusing if we don't understand the context between what by what she's doing, the things she's doing. I don't know if anyone saw the movie Encanto, but that had a strong theme of intergenerational and historical trauma within a family system.
Could you talk a little bit about the word decontextualized?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so often for people that have survived trauma, they don't want to tell the story, they don't want to talk about it. And so then it loses the reactions and the things they're doing. It loses any kind of context for the people around them. And so instead it just looks like, well, this person just gets angry all the time. They're just such an angry person, or this person's so sensitive, they're just always crying. And so it starts to then just be labeled as a personality trait without understanding of, well, maybe the reason they're angry is because of what happened to them. And now they don't feel safe. So they're constantly trying to fight. They're always trying to like make sure that they have what's theirs, maybe fighting for their family members. And so we don't understand it anymore. And it's because we didn't understand the context behind, like maybe somebody had attacked them and they weren't able to fight back in that moment. And so now they just have this anger and wanting to fight in other situations that don't need it anymore. And so same with families. If a family, maybe again, like the grandma, the matriarch in the family, had suffered, we can even think about like the genocide or the Holocaust, like somebody was taken away, maybe she didn't know where her children were. And so then as she has other children, if she's doing everything she can to protect them, it starts to seem like, oh, well, our family, this is just what we do. We only talk to each other. We only trust each other. We protect each other. And it's actually maybe that like we don't trust anyone else because grandma couldn't trust anyone else. Everything she went through, she feels like the world is not safe. But if we don't understand the context of how something is being played out, then it just seems like, oh, that family is just blah, blah, blah. That family just likes to move all the time. That family they're angrier people, or they only trust each other. And so it starts to end up being more of a family trait instead of realizing that it was rooted in trauma. Yeah.
Question, you're talking a lot about it manifesting anger. Does it?
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
if it ever manifested like control or power seeking and, like somebody makes an inappropriate controlling gesture because in another segment of their life, they didn't have or don't have.
Yes, thank you. So in a couple slides, we'll kind of go through some of the different symptoms and like the things that we might see if somebody's in a trauma response. So yes, it is not just anger. It could even be things like there's like super like willing to always do whatever anybody asks, and you're much more just like agreeable. And it could put somebody in danger because it's not a safe thing to be doing in all situations. But because that was the thing that helped them survive and get through something, now that's what they do in all stressful situations. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit about trauma in a people looks like culture. So we talk about genocide
Mm-hmm.
and genocide and the survivors, but then also what happens we didn't have genocide for those that have lived and what is lost. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So one example I'm thinking of, so the clinic that I'm specifically a part of is a prenatal clinic. And a lot of people will tell us like, oh, well, you know, my community, we just love having lots of babies. We love big families. And it's like, yeah, that's probably true as a culture. Like, you do love children, you do want lots of children. However, if we look at it, and that could just be true, but for some survivors of genocide, it's about rebuilding the community because we almost got wiped out. Our line was almost finished. And so actually we're doing everything we can to still be around. And so it looks like it's a cultural thing, and partially it is. Like, it's part of like, they do love children, and it's also rooted in trauma that they almost got wiped out, that they almost weren't here anymore. And so those kinds of things where sometimes it is just, you know, oh, we're just really loud people. And maybe that's true. Maybe you are just like really loud people. And also, yeah, right. Like, when we get together, we just really get going. And sometimes that's true. It is just a family thing. That's who we are. Sometimes it's more rooted in the trauma of, oh, we had to be so quiet for so long that now we're actively trying against that. And so we're trying to be louder. We're trying to make sure that we're still seen. We're still here in the world. And
I think there's a lot of talk about that. Because
yeah, just that one.
But just, you know, those are very important things to remember.
Yes. Even so I'm originally from the Midwest, and we definitely have a like pull yourself up by the bootstraps like idea. But moving to Idaho, like that is like so ingrained in people that are like born and raised Idaho that like, nope, I don't need to ask other people for help. I can be strong. I can do this myself. It was shocking to me at first. And then when you really start looking back at like the history of the Basque people that came and that they really did have to be on their own. They were out in the mountains. This is a very cold, desolate place in the winter time. And so when you start to think like, oh, but like actually this, yes, like there are a lot of people that can just be strong, they can get through things on their own, but so much of it was that they had to. So it wasn't that they didn't want to have family or community around them, they had to. And so it starts to become a personality, it becomes a family trait, and then pretty soon it becomes Idaho culture. Like that's just who we are as Idahoans. We're very rugged, we're very individual, and we don't want to ask other people for help if we don't have to. So you're right, like there's so many examples. It's so much we could talk about just with the culture part, with family. Yeah.
I was thinking too, about some of our stereotypes about certain groups, like you're just talking about, like thinking about Native Americans.
Mhm.
For so long were isolated, and they had very negative stereotypes put on them.
Yeah.
Customs were taken on by other groups. And so, oh, no, like cowboys and Indian outfits.
Yes.
You know, something like that. And then not recognizing ongoing trauma over centuries, generations. So I mean, that's something for us to be really aware of. That's why I like the statement at the beginning, acknowledging that loss.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of great things have happened in Idaho, but also we're really rooted in so much trauma. Yeah. Any other thoughts about this slide, about these three? We kind of know what wellness is, that like we're trying to like keep ourselves present. We're trying to be able to connect with the world. And you can see where for some cultures, there's stereotypes of like, oh, well, those people are very isolated. Those people are very loud. Those people are, and it's all connected back to like, okay, but is that rooted in some trauma that has happened collectively or even as a family line? Or is this really just like, they're just fun people that like to be loud? I don't know. I'm Italian, so like we definitely like to be loud when we're all together. Like, it's who we are. And also there's definitely some roots to family history. So this is where we'll kind of look through, like thinking back about being able to be safe. So if we're in a very healthy place, we're considered to be safe and social. So in this place, all of our three brains are connected. We're able to be fairly calm, but also active. So we're not like too tired, we're not too anything. We're just like, we're able to go, we're well rested. We can handle stressors that come towards us. We can be flexible about some of those stressors. We can try to like, oh yeah, it's fine that that didn't happen. We can problem solve and learn from the things that are happening around us. And then we can connect to others. So being able to like see people as like safe and that they're interesting and I want to learn about them, being able to question and wonder is all about being safe and social. So everything is connected. We're going through the world. If somebody is starting to have a stress response, we start to lose access to certain parts of these things. So the first thing that happens to us is that we get mobilized. And so often our heart rate will increase, our breathing gets faster, and then we start to have an impulse to either move away from whatever is happening. This could be seen as either being argumentative, like that's the more like anger part, we're in the mobilizing, or we're trying to run away from it. This is where we often see blame of other people. So we start thinking like, oh, well, if they would have just done blah, 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 then it would have been okay. And this often happens like on a team or in a family system. Feelings connected to this are often overwhelmed and anxious, angry. People can have an exaggerated startle response. So like a noise out in the hallway like scares us more than it would if we were just in a really like healthy place and realizing that we were in the library, probably somebody dropped a book out in the big room. Like we're fine, we're safe, we're here, versus like thinking that some kind of danger was about to happen. People often start to get some digestion issues because their digestion is either like sometimes it's that you have more diarrhea, you're going to the bathroom more often because everything is trying to leave because we're immobilizing. We're trying to get rid of everything we can. And then hostility and rage are some of like the final emotions that start to really come up. If these mobilization symptoms are not successful, if this is not working for me to be able to survive whatever stressful situation I'm in right now, then I start moving into shutdown. So now I'm more immobilized. And so now maybe I'm zoning out. Maybe I'm just like scrolling through my phone. I'm not really even looking at anything, but I'm just kind of, I have it there. I'm just scrolling through it. Heart rate actually decreases and our breathing slows. Speech, you can notice, will often slow down. So you start to blame yourself. So you're turning everything more inward. Like, oh, if I would have just blah, 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 then I could have been safe. If I would have just done this thing, then my team wouldn't be mad at me. So we're starting to really move inward. This is where we start losing energy, chronic fatigue, digestion really slows down at this point. So instead of like diarrhea and things, it's more like constipation. And then dissociation. So like not even really being in the room anymore. So now I'm just kind of like checking out. We often call it just colloquially, like I'm not really paying attention to anyone. I can't concentrate. And so these are kind of the ways that we move through stress. And then we have to move all like the same way back out of it. So if somebody was in shutdown, they didn't think that they could get away from the stress by moving. So they just, everything slowed. They actually have to come back through the mobilization to be safe again. So somebody has to actually get angry or need to like move things through their body. They need to go for a run. They need to do some kind of active thing. Often we'll be like, oh, somebody should just do yoga and like help them calm down. But actually yoga, if it's too much, too slow, too, like too calming, it actually is moving somebody into shutdown. What they need is to be able to continue to mobilize and get it out, go for the run, go for a walk, hike, something that's really moving the body so that then they can be safe and social again. So they can connect with their peers, so they can be a part of the community again. Some people can move up and down this system very easily. If you're a very like fairly healthy person, maybe you have had trauma in your history, but you've worked through it quite a bit, you can help yourself and you can notice signs and symptoms. You can be like, ooh, like my heart rate has really picked up, like, or like maybe you have an Apple Watch or whatever, and like it's warning you, like your heart rate is really increasing. And you can notice that and then be like, okay, something is stressing me out a bit. What can I do? Like maybe I can go and talk to someone so I can, like, not even about whatever's stressing you out, but just so I have connection again. Maybe I can watch some goofy cat video or something so I can laugh and like kind of move and get some of the that mobilization out. Some people, when they get all the way down to the shutdown, it's hard to be able to move back up and through these things. And some people do get stuck. So there are, if you've had a lot of trauma, and it could be like community collective trauma, it could be intergenerational trauma. Some people, like their baseline is more the mobilization. And so then this is where the personality stuff, like, oh, they're just an angry person. Oh, they're super active. They love running. They love doing blah, blah, blah. They never sit. They're always working. And so we start putting personality traits to some of these. And then also with the shutdown, if somebody's had so much that their baseline is shut down, like, oh, they're just kind of lazy. They never really want to do anything. They don't want to go out. They're always blaming themselves for things that happen around them, even if it's not their fault. And so we start putting personality traits to people when really it could be connected back to them not feeling safe. And so we have to help people try to kind of move through. Thoughts about any of this?
No.
Oh.
So anyone out there in the Zoom land, if you do have a question or have something, we can't see you per se on the screen. We can see as far as if you have a chat or put something in the chat, then Kim is following on her phone and she'll let us know, and then you can offer up. So
I
out of
do.
sight, not out of mind.
I do have a thought. This is Steve on the polyvagal theory in the mobilization and shutdown, blaming others and then self-blame. It just strikes me that traumatized groups and or individuals have often been blamed and scapegoated, and that leads to a lot of injustice. And it seems to me this is almost a mirror of that, where you've been affected that way to the point where in self-blame, you start thinking, what have I done? What have I done wrong? And I don't know, I just see some interesting, I don't know what the right word is, just some resonance there between being blamed and then either blaming others in return or blaming yourself.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Yeah, that's great. In the medical field, there's often a lot of the blame about, oh, well, this community, they just have higher rates of diabetes because of their nutrition, because of blah, 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 whatever we're choosing to blame that individual or that community for. But when we think about it in this sense of looking at it as trauma, and also thinking about having access to nutrition and like what kinds of things people have access to, that often the digestion issues or diabetes, like some of these chronic illnesses, are actually not because of anything that that individual or that community is doing. It's really more about the system that we've created around them. And so it's actually put them into unhealthy places. And yet we sit there and try to put the blame on people. So thanks for that, Steve. Please.
In the shutdown phase, those different line items sort of describe depression.
Yes. Yeah. So the mobilization often like looks more like anxiety. So people are just like worrying all the time. Maybe they can't sit still. And then you're right, this shutdown is more the things we would attribute to depression. So not connecting with other people anymore, not wanting to go out, hard to get out of bed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I work quite a bit with some of the African community now, and their separation is, I made it out, but my sister didn't.
Yes.
And there's a lot of trauma there, and that's why I was on the docents here, that those children of Afghans are running on tours, will be in the tours,
Yes.
and they're feeling this because, you know, I helped someone do a money order. And then they were told, well, don't do it because the Taliban takes it.
Wow.
And so they're trying to get help for the grandmother who needs eye surgery, but the money isn't gonna get there. So they're dealing with this all the time.
Yes.
You can bet they're telling their children about this. Those kids going to school, and they're,
Yeah.
yeah, it can definitely lead to depression and
Yeah.
anxiety.
And then thinking, so if maybe like my parents are talking hushed about how we can't send the money back because of the Taliban, you can still feel that as a kid. And so then that's where the decontextualization, like, I don't understand why mom and dad are so stressed, but I know things are bad. And so then they're in these either more mobilized or more like shut down, the depressed states. And there's no reason. So this is where it's not necessarily about the brain, because it's not that they understand why they're depressed. They don't understand why mom and dad are whispering and so upset because grandma isn't going to be able to get this money, but it's around them. And so they're feeling it and they're noticing it and they're responding as if they're in a stressed state without having any language or understanding of it. And so then this is where it starts to look like a family trait. We're just worriers, we're this or that, because like, I don't know as a 6-year-old why this is all happening. And yet like, I can feel it. And then I'm on this tour, you're right. And like, they will be in these school groups that are coming. And so some of these things are things that you can kind of be watching for and thinking about like, oh, that kid keeps getting their phone out and is just like scrolling. And it may have nothing to do with being disrespectful. It may be that like this information like is too much, it's overwhelming. Or maybe somebody's goofing off in the back. Well, maybe this is their way of trying to flee the information because they can't take it in. It's too much for their body. And so instead they're goofing around or they're doing what they're playing, whatever, and they're not listening. It might be part of their flee response. Or maybe somebody's being argumentative. It could be their fight response is happening. And this is for adults as well, obviously, but just thinking about the school groups and things that you all do.
May I say something?
Please.
Okay, I was just reading most of the things under the category of mobilized, and it makes me think a lot of our protest marches and the state that we all get into, or that I should speak for myself, that I get into when I am marching for a cause, or what I saw with Black Lives Matter. And sometimes I guess they do a good job and make their point, and sometimes maybe go overboard when we're in that mobilized place of getting to hostility and rage or some of those things. But a lot of the characteristics do sound to me like sometimes peaceful protests, but not always peaceful protests, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, great point that if we can be mobilized and still be like connected to others. So we're just on that line of the green being safe and social. Like I'm here with my community and we're all really upset about George Floyd's death, and we're all together and we're mobilized because we're passionate and we need to get out there. We need to be fighting this. But if we cross the line and we're not feeling connected anymore, that's when exactly like some of the more like the actual aggression, like the fighting each other, fighting within groups, fighting the police, fighting. I mean, it can play out in so many different ways because you've lost the connection with other people. And so now I'm just angry and now I'm blaming and I'm mad. And it's not that they aren't to blame, they are. The things that happened and are continuing to happen are awful. And yet, if we lose the connection and being able to like really keep ourselves connected to our community and the cause, then we start to get just literally angry and the rage and the hostility towards others. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for like burn down the system. There's definitely a place for that. But it is about like, but is it with like, where am I headed in mind? Or is it just overwhelming anger and rage? Is there no idea like what this is actually for anymore? I'm just angry. Yeah.
Seems like we see so much of that now in our culture. There's so much anger and so much rage coming out and from all different sides and different perspectives.
Yeah.
Even people that you don't normally think wouldn't be like healthcare providers. They're
Yes.
very angry about certain response they've had, or you have police officers, or you
Yes.
have educators. I mean, they're just like everybody instead of feeling like they have to protect themselves. They've been traumatized by events, and that anger is very diffuse.
Yes. We've lost the like connection to like you said with healthcare providers, like now they're just angry at people because they won't get the vaccine and they're not wearing masks and so there's like blah and we're mad. It's like, but we've lost the ability to think through like, oh yeah, but like they had reasons behind why they didn't want to wear masks, or they had reason, they're scared, it's a new vaccine, but we can't have access to that anymore because we're just so angry with each other. We're so divided. We can't have conversations and keep the connection with each other. And so then it does really like keep us in a traumatized state where we're not feeling safe anywhere anymore. There's a lot of doom and gloom on this slide. But remember, it is possible. We go up and down the ladder, so we can get back to safe and social. We can get back to a place as a community where we're not always just angry with the other side, whatever the other side is. We can communicate again. We can come back from this. It's not easy, but we can do it. Okay, so these are the 6 principles of a trauma-informed approach that we'll kind of spend the rest of the time thinking through and thinking about the tours that you all give, the center in general, the memorial and the space that you all bring people to. And we'll kind of go through them one by one and just really look at it as like, what can we do to help whoever the participants are that are going on your tours feel safe, that they can feel like they can trust what's going to happen. They can be trusting of the tour guide and of the center, that we have some peer support in all of this, that we're having collaboration between community, that the participants are empowered to know that they have voice and that they do get to make choices. And then really thinking about some cultural, historical, and gender considerations. So I do have a handout. Sorry for all of you that are, I should have emailed this out to you, Lorraine, before. If you want to take notes, like write on it. I see most people have notebooks, so you can do it there as well. But a place to kind of keep all of your notes if you want it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We can pass that around.
Okay. Thank you. And I can definitely email the handout and then the slides to you so you can pass it on to everyone. Or actually, it was on the Zoom link, everybody's email, so I can send it that way.
Well, and it's being recorded.
Oh, yeah, so we've got that too. Okay, so the first thing that we can think about is safety. So how do the tours that you all are providing to the community promote both physical and emotional safety for people? So some things we like to think about is like the physical setting of where these things are occurring. So the neighborhood, the streets that are going by, like just all of those things. So how can we help that be as safe as possible? The accessibility for people that maybe need some accommodations, the actual physical space entering and exiting. So being able to really think about, like, do people have the ability to leave when they need to? The physical, like, reception area, like where people are first coming in as they're like gathering and they're waiting for the tour. And then what do the participants experience as they arrive? How can we help them feel safe Are there greetings that you can offer, ways that, like, what are the things around them that they'll see as soon as they're entering? Is there any like COVID stuff that's still happening? Like, are there, I'm assuming there's not mask requirements and things anymore. And then again, the entrances and exits. So how can we really think about the physical setting of your tours and helping them to be as safe as possible for people so that as they're entering and then leaving afterwards, their physical bodies will feel safe? I think one thing, when people are at museums or when they're going on a tour, often it's just a very fast flippant thing at the beginning, like, oh yeah, and by the way, the bathrooms are over there, the exit's there. But it's important to be really intentional about those things so that if something is upsetting and somebody is having some digestion issues, like making sure it's really intentional to say, you are welcome to go to the bathroom at any point during the tour. The bathrooms are over here, so that people can take a minute to really remember where they would have to go. Same with the exits. We've got exits over here. As we're walking, you're welcome to walk away. But just thinking of ways that people, if they are getting more into that mobilized state, how can they leave the group safely so that they can kind of protect themselves? And I haven't actually been on a tour, I'm really sorry to say, so I don't actually know what what it looks like, and
We can show you.
I will take it, but we have a problem with the bathrooms are accessible. I remember, yeah.
oh,
Somebody really has to go to the bathroom.
so you'd have to go all the way in.
Library,
Okay,
and that might be a problem with school groups.
yeah,
We had a big group last week and Lorraine helped us and there were about 9 different stations or something. But the fact that we had our numbers up and the kids had a place to go, we greeted them as a smaller group. I just think those kinds of things that we do help this. And we had those
Yes.
groups
Yeah.
that we just have, Lorraine was ushering them, go to your number 7, there they are over there. I just thought it was a real comfortable way for a big group to get split apart. And they knew where to go. It was like, where do I go? There wasn't any
right, and then
confusion.
it's like,
There was no
people start to get
stress.
stressed about it.
They knew where
That's
to go.
great.
So, and then as a docent, I wasn't stressed.
Yeah.
Yes,
So my own stress could bounce back to them.
Yeah.
So it was, but I just think that was a neat way to do that, be prepared for those kinds of separations.
yes. Yeah, and often like people are milling around and they're waiting for the tour to start. And so then it can be so quick to be like, hi, and I'm Beth and I'll be your tour guide. And so here we go, let's get started. We're running late. But just really taking a minute to stop when you're going to be talking about such heavy material, to say like, I'm Beth, I'm going to be your guide through all of this. We'll have some heavy topics. And so then people can know, and the bathrooms are here. If you need to step away, all of those things that you can help so that physically people can feel safe as they're going through the tour.
Yeah, one of the things that we're trying to do is assure that, especially with the large groups, is there's a chaperone with each small group of kids. So that if one to help us make sure they're staying with us,
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that you've wondered away, that we have stressed about not having them use their phones, and because they can't use them at school.
Yes, so they shouldn't. Yeah.
Right.
On the tours.
Or when we see and we talk about sometimes, well, there are kind of 2 or 3 that are just scrolling. Well, some of them are, junior high students, and junior high students are traditionally kind of squirrely. It's just developmentally where they're at and very social of things. So so sometimes as a docent, I see that as being, a person being potentially rude,
Yes.
versus seeing that, that may be that flip side of that's how they're trying to cope with the material.
Yeah.
But then employing that chaperone to be able to say, maybe it would be helpful if you were with this person to see,
Yes.
are they okay? You
Yes.
know, take them aside. And,
Yeah.
you know, not in a derogatory way of you need to, but just see, is there something kind of going on? And that's what we're trying to enlighten the teachers on, is being trauma sensitive as well.
Yes.
So upfront, giving them the information that they may not have thought about in the past.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's great. And having a chaperone, so that if there is somebody that does need to step away, because yeah, you don't want junior high kids just wandering off. But so having somebody that knows the kids, so like they know that like, oh yeah, like this is actually really unusual for them. Like you're right, like let's take them, or like, yeah, they're kind of a squirrely kid all the time. So what can I do to help redirect that? And that should be on somebody that knows them better. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on, I did a tour last week and there was clearly this one boy who was clearly uncomfortable. Really didn't have a chaperone, just me. I wonder if I should have just quietly somehow, just tell him it's okay if you want to go. Just bother you, just go sit somewhere. I mean, there's places he can just go wait.
Yeah.
Until, not go through the tour, maybe it'd be better. And he just not even. No.
Yeah. Yeah, better for him, better for the other kids if he could have just sat, if you felt like, yeah, this is a safe place, there's no chaperone, so I can't let him just wander off or ask somebody to help. Like, can he just sit here and wait because you can still see and then continue with the other students?
It might be that that little table, picnic table that's in the middle, could be kind of a timeout
Yeah.
table for people if they need to,
Say so.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
We
know.
could also
And-
use the amphitheater there as kind of a central location, because in a traditional tour, it's not a traditional tour stop after the introduction. And it is central to the rest of the memorial.
Right. And that could be something that then the teacher seeing a child that's there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Know that
they need to address that.
I need to go and
Yeah.
check in with that person.
Yep.
Good idea.
Because then you can keep going with the rest of the students. That kid can get what they need, and then there's supervision, so you feel good about it, that that kid is safe. Yeah.
And that works if it's a choice. If you're just sending them, that's shame.
Yeah.
So you're on the balance there, the
Yeah.
tightrope of shame and whatever. So I like what mentioned, that give them the choice.
Yes.
Are you uncomfortable? You're welcome to sit over here. But if you say, why don't you go over there? That's
Yes.
shame.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful.
Yeah. I love that.
You could just add that when you're talking about the bathrooms and when you need to step away.
Yeah. Yeah. You have the choice.
There's a central
Yeah.
bench area here
Yeah,
that you won't be considered a wanderer. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
you could put a chaperone there.
Yeah.
So this place that we may will give kids opportunity to go to if they want to go.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have to put that.
Yeah.
But I just know that if I just set them, why don't you go over there? That's a whole different ballgame.
Especially you as like the tour guide, because then, yeah, like then this kid is like, well, I don't wanna, I mean, you know, and then they're defensive and yeah, they'll get, yeah. Or, yeah, much more like argumentative,
Right.
instead of like, you have the choice, if you would like, you can go sit down and come back and join us whenever you're ready. Yeah, so they know they're not being dismissed from the group, but you can come back to us. Yeah. Good ideas, all. Any other things, thinking about like the physical space and trying to help people feel safe as they're going through the tour? And a lot of these are super like overlapping and connected. So as we go through them, we may be like, oh, this kind of fits more with safety, but like, what if we did this on the tour?
what about when the group is open on the backside to, like, say, the green belt? I mean, should we be mindful of where we position ourselves so that, like, we're containing the group, or, you know, that they're not with their back to the river or exposed in a different direction?
That's a great question with like all the traffic that's often going by on the green belt and it's fast. Yeah, is that a possible thing to be able to shift?
Yeah, we do that.
We do.
Safety is very important.
So I think somebody from the world.
This is Paul. I have a reply to that question. I think the Greenbelt area down behind the annex by the butterfly garden is a place that has some prime dangers from traffic going by on the Greenbelt, bicycles, scooters, skateboards, runners. So I always try to get people I'm guiding through to step way up on the grass hill. So they are facing the memorial. And then I stand at the bottom of the grass and then I can face them. My 2 cents worth.
Same for you, that's kind of how you orient.
On from there, you can see people coming from either direction too.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Okay, we'll go to the next one, remembering that these are all interconnected, so we can still think about safety. So thinking about for you all as a team, the peer support and like mutual self-help that you're offering to each other. So thinking about like who is included in your community. So are we thinking about people that have lived experience? Are we getting information from them so we can improve the tours? How about our staff? Like, are we asking some of the other staff, how can we help these tours be more safe and more comfortable for people? How do you get feedback back from like the participants and like other community stakeholders? And so just really thinking about who do you all feel is your community and how are you getting information from them so that the information, but also like physically the tour feels safe. And then also thinking about how does your group show that it values the community? So like what kind of terminology do we use? One that we talk about at our clinic often is that often people say, oh, well, the refugees, blah, 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 the refugees do this. And at our clinic, we really try to say like a person who sought refuge, because they're a person first, they're here, they've needed to at times flee and get refuge, but that's not the only thing that they are. So how can we help really use terminology that's helping the community feel included? How do you all collaborate with community partners? Like maybe things like newsletters and like open houses. And so just really being able to get information out so that you're getting good feedback back to you all about the tours and how to help people to feel safe and to feel included in the center and in the tours. One thing that can be hard with the people with lived experience is that often it can be very hard for them to want to talk about these things and want to go through the tour, but trying to find ways to safely connect so that we can get a better understanding of the information that we're giving. Is it really respecting people that do have the lived experience of fleeing or of torture or of genocide and war, that they're able to have a voice in how the tours are, like the wording that's used and like even the physical experience of going through the tours. This one can be a hard one because often many of us have very loving hearts and our hearts are in the right place. And we're like, oh, like I can talk about this and I can educate the community, but we forget to actually talk to the people with lived experience and get more feedback so that they're like, oh yeah, like that is respectful of what we went through, or like, nope, you shouldn't do it that way. And so we think we're doing something very kindly and like our heart is in the right place, but we can end up having some pretty harmful impacts on the community if we're not carefully trying to find ways that we can have support from people with the lived experience. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the opportunities, I think, for us as docents is that there are 80 quotes, at least in the memorial. And those quotes are from people who have lived experience.
Yes.
And we are taught to not speak at our guests, but to encourage them to participate and speak. And like the South Junior High kids, I had my group today, there were 8 students, and at least 4 of those students had some ethnicity or something. And we try to get everybody to participate. And sometimes guests will choose not to speak. And even though you want them to help you read a quote or give you their best thinking on what might be behind these words, it's, I have grown to not say, well, can you tell me what your thoughts are? Just because you can tell they're listening and they're there. But if they wanted to speak up, there were lots and lots of opportunities for them to do that. And some do more than others. So that's, I've grown more and more uncomfortable with asking, well, I haven't heard from you yet, or some of the quiet ones are not talking today. Will you read this next quote for me? Or you get tired of my voice? Help me here. And I just felt like that was the right thing to do today. Just to, those that did want to speak up were very participatory.
Great.
So what do you think about trying to balance that?
Yeah, I think it seems like the way that you handled that was just beautiful, that you're opening it up and you're giving the opportunity for someone to be able to share and to participate, to read one of the quotes if it connected to them, but not force it on anyone, because you don't know what they've been through and you don't know what's happening at home and so like just opening it up so that somebody has the choice to be able to participate in the way that they want. And maybe that will be later they, handwrite a note and send it in and thank you so much for the tour. And that was the way that they could do it. They couldn't do it with their voice in that moment.
Or maybe with their peers. I mean,
Yes,
it's just
exactly.
real delicate.
Yes.
It seems like the more we do it, the more delicate it becomes.
Yes.
Because there is a lot of diversity.
Yes.
Sometimes in our groups, more and more so, especially school groups.
Exactly. The school groups, especially. Yeah.
A comment in the chat.
Yeah.
Asking versus assuming is powerful, respectful, and means a lot.
Beautiful.
Say that again, please.
The comment was asking versus assuming is powerful, respectful, and means a lot.
Yeah, good.
Yes. Yeah, if we assume anything, we can totally miss the mark. And so asking our community members, asking the tour participants, giving them the opportunity, to share and to educate us so that we can have more information to keep improving. Yeah.
I just want to say that use the word terminology utilized, we do more with language.
Okay.
Terminology, one of the things I think you be aware of is like when you use the terminology, like I'm hearing so much about homeless people, but it's really people who do not, who are not housed.
Yes.
Are needing homes. So being careful of that, just pigeonhole somebody.
Yes.
Well, this is somebody's stereotype versus someone who will be different when they have a place to live.
Yes. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, so being really careful and thinking through the language that you use on tours. Am I putting something on somebody, whether that's thinking historically about the information you're giving, or the participants in the group? How do we, as the person just chatted, how do we just really open up and be curious and just invite people to be able to express things instead of assuming and instead of labeling how things are. Other thoughts about helping people that either are going through the tours or people that have lived experience of the things you're talking about, just thinking about how they could be more a resource tapped into to help keep informing the tours and help them keep improving. And this is maybe something you're all already doing, either through surveys or newsletter, like different ways that you're already soliciting feedback. But just always trying to like keep thinking like, what are new ways that we could get more information? The next one, so trustworthiness and transparency. So how do the tours you provide develop trust with the community that you're serving? And again, like thinking about like, who is your community? So is that just the people that are on the tours? Is that like our wider Boise community? And then how does the community understand the services that you provide? Because you can be doing all kinds of great things as an organization, but if people don't know what's happening, if we're not being transparent about the things that are going on, then nobody's going to benefit.
I think we've changed a bit, Deb Sager and Jane possibly as well. We send out this front-loading information to the teacher now. And because we acknowledge that there may be children of trauma in your classrooms. Also, front load, here's what we're talking about, genocide and elimination, some very heavy topics.
Yes.
We'll get third, fourth graders even, it's tough. But anyway, I think we're doing a good job of getting that information to teachers. And then also excellent work, I think, on surveys, because it turned around like in 2 days, we got a survey back from last week's group. It was just like, here's what was said by the teachers. So I think that really helps us. This whole idea of front loading, what their expectations, you're bringing them here, here's all the expectations, here's what you're going to hear, and then tell us how we did.
Yes.
I think that's in place.
Because the teachers
And it's
also
new. It's getting
maybe
better.
recognize students who shouldn't go to the door.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They have it first time go.
Do something else.
Yeah. I think a couple of the things that you mentioned are such a like foundational piece that will be so helpful for all of you. The really explaining what will happen, like we are going to use these terms. This isn't going to be one of, like you had mentioned in the beginning, Mark, about like, well, we're hiding some of the bad things. Of course, we're talking about Anne Frank, but we're going to kind of like take out the harmful words. We're going to not talk about that. So warning them that like, we are going to be honest about what happened. We're going to be using this terminology. So then the teacher can be prepared and know like, okay, so this might be hard for these couple of kids. So maybe I'm prepared that like they might have to go to the, I can't remember the term you used. The safe zone. Yeah. Maybe like I'm just going to have my eyes on these 3 just in case they need to move out of the group. And so then the teacher can be more prepared and you all can then feel good about the fact that like, the information that you're giving, it's not going to be so shocking to kids and to anybody that's on your tour. The more that we can just really help explain what's going to happen next, we'll give people, and we'll talk about this in another slide, like the choice of like, okay, can I participate? Do I need to sit out? Which is huge. So that's great that you're all doing that, especially for the student groups. Even then a kid is sick that day and they stay home from school because they know what's going to happen on that field trip. And they know that like that would be too much for them. And at least then they were warned, they have the option then.
Coming from an educator background, as a school principal, just had a thought that it'd be nice to even ask that the counselor be prepared when kids come back.
Yes.
To offer, you went to Anne Frank, if you want time to speak with me today, that would probably be a really good piece of this.
Yeah.
I know the counselors I work with would love that. And counselors know so much more
Yes.
about these children, even the teachers, because a lot of what they know, they can't share.
Yep.
But anyway, that might be another piece we can tack on.
That's a great idea to help them think through the potential outcomes of the tour. So not just what they'll experience when they're on the tour, but what the outcome could be when they're coming back to the school and maybe even the next day.
We don't have any kind of debrief,
Yeah.
so somebody should.
Yes,
After
Yes.
talking about people being eliminated,
yes,
so that should probably be a discussion that we can't do.
yes. Yeah, your role is to do the tour. And then it's the school's role, yeah, to then, when they return or the next day, yeah. It's not always completely possible, but trying to ask permission. Or again, like just warning, like, okay, we're going to be moving from here to here to here, and like, so people can kind of see. So that even if, like if they're starting to get stressed and they're starting to get overwhelmed, at least they can start to think, okay, so like with objectives in a lesson or something, like, okay, I did this, and then we're gonna go to that, and we'll go to that, and then it'll be done. And so at least then somebody can be prepared and kind of have an idea of like, okay, how much more of this, maybe now I need the safe zone, like that's too much to have to do, like talk about that thing, and then we're gonna go over to that spot. I need a minute. And so then they know that what to expect as they're going through the tour.
How much time do you think we spend on our tours about the teaching of the severe end of the spiral of injustice versus how to be an upstander? How the world needs to be an upstander. You know, how do one of the things I love about our memorial is that it embraces everything associated with human rights. And we tell a story through human rights. But I mean, with the younger kids, you know, particularly, we want to start them on the road of comfort with being upstanding.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we have enough material for that there at the memorial. I've been wondering that since I've just started to do tours, you know. Because you want them to feel they have some control over their lives and, you know, the community they live in. What are the tools that we're giving them to do?
Yeah.
I don't think we're just there to tell.
I'd love to comment with Melissa because, for example, today our kids were 13.
Yeah.
So you can go along and pick all the quotes done by children.
Yeah.
And not talk about like some of the other quotes. I mean, we did Ellie Wiesel and we did Martin Niemöller. Some of those are just really profound. But you could do sort of a child focused or just focus on Anne Frank readings around it and Oladiah Equiano, the African slave boat. And I mean, that's what we did today because I just was a little bit uncomfortable. The students were from South and I could just tell it was a little bit different group than the real participatory acting out East Junior High last week. That was a whole different deal, but the same age, but a different group. So that, just focusing on quotes that are spoken by young people, Malala.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of uplifting, there's just so many of those that are just bring you up instead of take you down.
Right.
And so you kind of maybe want to balance those out, or I don't know, we have so much material that it doesn't just have to be about spiral of injustice and the genocide wall. I really was very light on the genocide wall today. I was not comfortable with all that, so it was just a different deal.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people by nature tend to be on the, the more actionable item side of the spiral of injustice and not talking. I mean, we mentioned violence and elimination, but I know when I do my tours, we spend a lot more time on the top half. But I think it's also important that we, have meetings like this where we learn the words, where we call a death camp.
Yeah.
And we call murder. Because I think it's also disrespectful to not bring up those topics and sugarcoat any other part of the story.
I like what Melissa said, though, great way to start. I'm gonna start my next tour with the group I have, because this is a place of hope.
Yeah.
The memorial is a place of hope. You're gonna hear some very tragic things. We're gonna talk about the project, but you know what? We're gonna talk about being an upstander, and there's hope for all of us. So that kind of, I think that's how we lay that out. This is a place of hope. And because it is, I mean, every time I read the memorial, I feel good about the memorial. I don't feel bad. I feel like that was great.
It's uplifting.
Yeah, so it's a place of hope.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because we don't want to take somebody way down into the bottom rungs of the ladder, and so then they're, yeah, and we leave them there, we need to be honest about what has happened, what's been perpetrated, and like, how do then we help bring them back up to have connection and hope, and know that there are things I can do. I don't have to just have rage or be super depressed about this. I can stay connected. I can be mobilized to be an upstander and fight for justice, and to step up if somebody's picking on somebody else in class, like giving tools of things. That's beautiful. The next one, collaboration and mutuality. So how do you acknowledge and seek to understand the power dynamics that exist within the organization? And this could be tour guide to the teachers who are there as chaperones, to the participants on the tour. This could be within you all even, because so often what's being played out on the team then can be played out on the tours. So just thinking about power dynamics and thinking about how we can try to be honest about it. Like, you are tour guides, like you are there to help kind of direct and guide, but you don't have to be there to like, and then we're going to talk about, you know, like, how can we collaborate together to make a safe tour that we're learning, but we also have hope at the end, so that we can all go away as a healthier community, knowing the tragedies that are still happening in the world and having hope of what we can do about it. And then how do you recognize every person's role in the system? So I love that you all are like sending out information to the teachers so that their role is respected. It's like, you are going to be with them much longer than we are. We've got some great information. We've got a lot of tools here. We will do our role and be here and do this part. And then you're going to have them again. So what can you do? How can I help prep you before? Can we get the counselors involved so that there is a safe place that if anybody is overwhelmed or it did trigger anything for them, that they have something they can do when they go back. So how do we all collaborate as tour guides and as teachers and people signing up for the tours to help mutually come together to learn this information and not just play out like hierarchical power dynamics of, I'm here, I'm the knowledgeable one, I have all the information. You all are just here to like learn from me, because we're all still learning. There's always things that we're learning as we go. I think that's what this with the tours, like collaborating with the teachers, how you collaborate with other community partners.
I always feel like the office, Jane, Debbie, everybody in there has my back. I mean, well, really,
We do.
the information goes out, the signs go out, the response comes back. I mean, I've worked with a lot of organizations, but it seems seamless between the docent role and the office role seems to be very tight. And I appreciate that.
And we appreciate you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's my favorite part of what I do.
Working with the tours and the docents and the teachers and. We have people like Lorraine and Mark that are, that's why you're here. You know, raising the bar for us, helping us to understand more.
It's so much to feel the support from like the staff in the office to people. So then it keeps people coming back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like your docents would be like, never mind. This is too much work. I have to also send out and I've got to wait for the surveys and blah, blah, blah. And to have that support and to have that like mutual respect of each other helps to like really keep an organization like this going, especially when it's about such a heavy topic. It can be easy to be like really passionate and jump in and like, yes, I want to give tour guides because this is important. And if you don't have that support and you're not feeling like there's collaboration, you get burnt out and you leave. You don't stay in it. And so like kudos to you all for all you're doing to support your team.
Thanks. It's nice to hear too, because we're such a tiny operation and we feel like we have a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah, you
And
do have a
so
lot of
when
balls
you
in the
hear
air.
that, it's like, woohoo.
Right balls in the air.
Yeah.
Well, try.
Well, I do want to share, it was from our last tour from last group. So you think it's okay if I can share this?
Yes.
Jane?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me today.
So last week when we had the East Junior High tour, we got feedback from the teachers who really felt that we were, on target of what their goals were for us. They appreciated what we did. And so given the fact that 200 kids went through in a 2-hour time frame, we felt like, we did do good. But then we received a letter from one of the parents, who had a concern about some of the information that had been given, in particular about, that he felt that the tour guide went way beyond the scope of human rights and decided that it was their place to educate our children on many different things. And said that the daughter had said the tour was mainly on transgenderism, alternative sexuality, binary and non-binary individuals. The fact that an 8th grader could say all those things,
It's kind of amazing.
was interesting. And he was, confused. He said this was confusing for most of the kids because he believed that it was a day to learn about the Holocaust. And, he had been on a tour, he supports about human rights, but went on to kind of say that, about hot topics of that, the LGBTQ is a hot topic for today's world and everyone's entitled to their own rights and beliefs, but it's not appropriate for tours with junior high kids. So, he sent this out not only to us, but to the schools and to the board of trustees. So then, so we're kind of sitting there with that, for the last couple days and thinking, well, who responds? And we will touch back with this person. But then when you talk about then the collaboration and the mutuality, then we got a note from the teacher, one of the teachers who was on the tour, who was made aware of the complaint about mentioning LGBTQ. And he says, I want you and the members of the Wassmuth Center, volunteers, and any other stakeholders to know that every teacher and almost every student here at East supports your efforts and believes in your mission. And he said, I find it deeply ironic that this comes up on a day focused not on others or groups, but tolerance in an intolerable world. So please know and appreciate your work, dedication, and efforts to educate the people of Boise, no matter where they come from. These are values we believe in Boise and will continue to fight for in the future. And if there's anything that you can do to help out, please let them know. And basically just said, don't change anything and continue to provide excellent service and knowledge to students wherever they are able. So, we see what we do. We sometimes may get feedback from one person or two, but recognize that there's a force of people. And again, this teacher being willing to be an upstander and show support for our organization. So,
I'm gonna get more and more of it. Just our land acknowledgement, you're gonna have people say, now, why are you doing this?
Yep.
You're making these white kids feel bad again.
Yep.
So everything we do at Memorial on our tour is controversial in this climate. And so we're gonna get those hits, and I guess we just have to know what those sensitivity points are. But we have to do our work, and I think the Wassmuth Center is the last vestige of telling the truth about history, as far as I'm concerned, right now. And so we can't back off, we just need to be sensitive.
Well, and
Sure.
the other thing I'm hearing it from that particular parent was, we thought this was a tour about the Holocaust. And it's not only about the Holocaust, it's about human rights, which are there's historical events we talk about, and then there's current headlines, so I'm not surprised that we would have a parent reacting to a phrase that one of our docents, who knows, it might have been me, who said something that, triggered them up. Who is this docent trying to influence my child, kind of thing.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Lorraine.
thank you.
I did not know that this has been going on.
It just came.
Yeah. Very good. to hear
But I
this.
think when you said, when you respond to the parent, it would really be nice to cut and paste the teacher's comments that offset it. So as everybody's reading the inflammatory accusation part, there's also the person that led the group and brought them to the memorial and set up the tour.
Yeah.
Saying, please keep doing what you're doing.
I might also add that we have a little more information about this parent. And this is not really an isolated, which is not, we probably knew that, both in the, from the note from the teacher. I feel like that was sort of handled really well by the teacher, and it said it without saying it. But important information just the same, because I think you're exactly right, Mark. It's not gonna get any better in that.
I can validate that as years of a school building principal. There is no parent with that issue. And, I've had schools where I had 600 kids and all their parents, and there is that parent.
Yeah, right.
That caused me more grief during the year. Yeah, so, but you don't ignore it.
No.
Right.
No, don't ignore it. But we don't lose sleep over it. Right. Take in the information. Make sure we're sensitive, but move forward.
Yeah.
It's good that we don't get any funding from our state legislature.
Oh, yeah, they knock us off right now.
Or we don't get it from the schools either.
Yeah, good point. But we have their support.
Because the support, we don't get money. That's
The best, yeah.
This is just such a perfect example of the collaboration, like as a team, like knowing, like, this is what was said. Here's some teachers that are being upstanders and like saying like, actually, we really support what's happening. We don't all agree with what, and this parent is saying. And so then how you all can realize like the community really has your back because of all the collaboration and all the great things that you're doing. And so, yes, there's going to be these one-offs and people that are upset, but they're upset because you're doing great work and you're really pushing like the bigger global sense of human rights, not just talking about something that happened in the past, but the things that are currently happening in our community that are causing people harm, that some of the legislature stuff that goes through, all the bills and things for 3 months and all the harm that happens to that particular community every year when legislature is in session and the bills that they have to listen to and what's going to happen to us and how are we supported by the rest of Idaho. And you're all showing them that we're here.
And that's an example of the secondary trauma. Because
Yes.
these kids know what's going on. They
Yes.
can tell us more about human rights than we can tell them. for
Yes.
sure. I have figured that out. But they get a lot of this stuff from that prior generation. And yet it creates some dissonance when they're with us, because we know that they're sharp and they can explain all of it to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for you all, like, how do we collaborate with that kind of like all the information that they already have so that you aren't just the like, no, but listen to me. I'm the expert. I'm going to tell you about the things. But like, how do we collaborate with the youth that like I mean, they've literally got the whole world at their fingertips on their phones, and they can look this stuff up. And so how do we help give them the tools to be the upstanders and take this information to the next level? The next one, so empowerment, voice, and choice. So this you've all been talking about quite a bit already. So how do you recognize and build upon individual and community strengths? So things that are happening out there, how do we bring people into the Wassmuth Center so that we can build on some of the things that they have to offer you? How do you acknowledge people as unique with different needs? So care could be, flexible and responsive. So as you're on the tour, like you had been mentioning, like, oh, this is a tour for a group of 8 South students. I'm not going to talk about this piece. I'm going to be flexible to the group that I have, and I'm going to tailor it in this way. And then how do you support the participants in recognizing their choices? And so can you give them the choice to go and sit down in the safe area and take a little break? Can you let them choose when to come back then? Could somebody have the choice to then not go on the tour and stay back? They missed school because you gave them all the information beforehand so they knew what to expect. So it seems like this one you all really have down. You're doing great work around like just really recognizing people should be able to say what they need and then offering them choices.
Well, I'm thinking too that wouldn't hurt for that same information to then be sure to be given to the volunteer parents that are coming, their students, because I'm thinking that that parent that wrote the comment might have been blindsided, not really understanding, because there's at least 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs of narrative now to prepare the teacher on content.
That's a great idea.
And the students are coming to us that are prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going both ways.
But are the chaperones?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That
This
would be really
dad
good.
might have been blindsided.
Yeah.
What? And maybe the dad was uncomfortable with it as opposed to the second generation.
Could be very good.
Yeah, so he could have had the choice to not volunteer or to
Yeah.
not have his kid go on the tour if he was uncomfortable with that or exactly, yeah. And anytime we can help people be able to make their own choices, to have their voice, to express what it is that they need, helps them to stay in that more regulated place and not be in stress. Then you don't get to the point where you feel like you have to fight and send in an email. You were prepared. You knew what the tour was going to be talking about. And I had the choice whether to participate or not, to send my kid or keep them home. It just helps everyone to be able to stay more in line and more healthy.
So when North actually went through, the teachers prior to that sent an email out to all the parents. Because in that case, not all the students were able to participate because we still had a cap on the number of students. And so that was really helpful because as a parent, I got, your kid has the opportunity to do this, you need to sign them up. And this is what, this is the unit we're doing in school, and this is why we're going there, and this is what they're going to teach us about. So in that case, the teacher did a lot more of the empowerment engagement.
Well, that's very good though.
But good communication.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was really good. Yeah.
Thanks, Luke.
Right.
Any other thoughts or ideas of how you can really help either before the tours to like prep so people have a choice, or ways that people on the tour can use their voice to like either respond or, like you had been saying, like not respond. Like that's also the choice to like not use my voice right now. It's maybe not feeling safe in this group of only a few other kids, or maybe it was a big tour, so I don't want to talk in front of everyone. So how do we offer some of those things so people feel welcome to use their voice and like say what they need to say when they want to, and also not feel the pressure of I have to respond because the tour guide is looking at me and saying like, what do you think about this?
It's a hard age.
Yes, junior high,
It's
yes,
not easy age.
yeah.
I think we have opportunities like at the float wall where they're going and reading some of the quotes on their own to go and individually talk to kids or groups of kids. Just to give them that opportunity in a more one-on-one situation.
That's a great way to just have another way to feel safe enough to be able to use my voice if I want, but I'm not forced to. I could also just be with my partner and read, by myself or whatever. Yeah, that's great. And then the last one, this also you all are doing so beautifully, but just really thinking about any cultural, historical, and gender considerations of both the information that you're educating our community about and about like the participants that are on the tour. So it seems like your team has considered stereotypes and biases of the identities you're supporting. Really thinking about like how your team represents the population that you're working with. And then really thinking about like the historic nature of all the topics that you're educating people about. This one you all are doing all the time.
Well, on that second point, we discussed in the past several times about the fact that our docent team is pretty uniform in our ethnic background. We'd love to have more diversity.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, so thinking like, how do we reach out, like thinking back to like the peer and like collaboration, like how do we find ways to get into some of the other communities so that the team is more representative of our Idaho community as it's changing and growing. Often we'll use the same ways to try to recruit, and then it's like, but nobody else is showing up. It's like, oh, well, because we're using the same tools we always have. So how can we get creative and think in other ways so that the team is more reflective of what Boise at least is growing into?
We've been talking about that for years.
Mhm.
You almost have to be retired with nothing to do.
Because it's a daytime,
Right.
schools,
But we know
school
that.
hours.
We've got lots and lots of
Yeah.
reflective learning on from different groups of people
Yeah.
saying, I don't feel comfortable being here because I look at all of you old white people thinking, where are people like me?
Yeah,
So we know that. We've heard that many, many times for many years.
yeah.
But the other, I think, on the flip is, from some readings that I've done, is that if we're working on these elements of, past transgressions and about, supporting human rights, it's should the people who have been oppressed actually also then be having to do the work to educate other people.
Yeah.
So it's one of those, is there hesitancy because they don't see others like them at the table? Or is it more like, I have enough in my daily life and my work and people that I'm trying to educate about me and my culture and all, versus now coming on and doing this work too, I don't know.
Especially as a volunteer position. So you're asking me to put all this emotional labor and time into the tours and all of that. And my day today is hard being a Black man in Boise, Idaho, or whatever the identities are. So that's a good point. Like, how do we balance it? Yes, it would be great if the team was more reflective of the community and have people that have lived experience. And should they be responsible for our education? We should be doing a lot of this work as, at least for myself, I should say, as someone who has benefited from the oppression and that my lineage has caused a lot of the oppression. So, yeah. Good point. Ugh. Yeah.
There was another comment in the chat from Steve, comparing the teachers' reassuring comments to the support from the community when the memorial has been vandalized. That be sensitive, but continue to educate and promote human rights.
We have to remember we are living in Idaho. Our tours would look different if we're in San Francisco or New York. And we have to, so that first one, as your team consider the stereotypes, biases, and the identities you're supporting. But we just have to know that we live in a very conservative state that's very resistant to some of this stuff. We don't need to judge them for that, but we need to understand it and know that, yeah, there'll be pushback.
Yeah, that's
So we have to be sensitive to that, sensitive to the community around us. I don't like it sometimes, but we need to be upstanders ourselves and allow voice, opinions, but don't water down the truth of the Anne Frank Memorial and working the Wassmuth.
There's just a couple wrap-up slides. So of course, we are never going to get any of this perfect, as much as we really try to not hurt other people, especially as we're trying to like educate and we're promoting human rights. We don't want to hurt anyone. It happens. It's going to happen on the tours. And so it's just really important to remember that there's so much beauty in the repair. And so if a kid does get overwhelmed by the stuff that's happening, like how can you then repair, or with the teacher, like it doesn't even have to be you all as the docents, but then how could you then say, hey, this happened, this kid got really upset and was yelling, I just want you to know, like, I'm really sorry if it was the material, you might just want to check in on them, and then help that kid have repair somewhere. It doesn't have to be with you all, but just knowing that we're going to keep messing up. We're going to keep making mistakes. And part of trauma-informed approaches to things is remembering that like it's the going back and it's repairing the relationships, because there's so much growth and healing when we can learn from what happened, as is everything that you're all teaching in the community, and then learn from it and repair and come back together. Yeah, so really like trusting the relationships that you have like between each other, between the office staff, between the people that are on the tours. And then remembering like there will be times so like you mess up and maybe things went really poorly on a tour and somebody got really upset. And so like maybe you did kind of step in it and like, me too. But it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or wrong with like the center. There was a mistake that happened. Something didn't go well, and we can do the repair to it. Also, and you had kind of brought this up, Mark, that if we get into a place that we're like, oh, like, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. And we start to really get in our heads, that then we end up having disconnection and we start feeling shame. Like, oh, I can't believe that I said that to that kid. They were squirrely and messing around at the back, and I yelled at them and told them to like get back with the group. And then like, but I just remembered I'm not supposed to yell at the kid. Like I'm supposed to do whatever because it's trauma-informed approach. And like, if we get too much in like our heads and in like our hearts of like, like I screwed that kid up forever, we have disconnection, and we want to make sure that we keep connecting with each other. And like admitting to each other, like, oh, I cannot believe that I pushed that kid to read in front of the other kids. I know not to do that. I know I should have given the choice whether they read the quote or not, but I made them and now I feel bad. And so telling each other, so then you can have that connection with each other and get back into that safe community. So just trying to help, especially when you're talking about such heavy topics. All of this stuff is about trying to break apart, We have the Survivors of Torture Center for the Idaho area. And one of the big things that we always talk about is like one of the hallmarks of torture is that they're trying to build disconnection and mistrust between us. And so part of human rights is to like keep that together, that we're here together. Yes, we may make mistakes. Yes, bad things happen in the world. And if we can have connection with each other, then we can keep healing and moving forward. When we're arguing and fighting and like letting ourselves, like all the blame, then we just are continuing these cycles.
Did you say that there's a center for survivors of torture at St. Al?
There is, yeah.
You actually are working with people in our community for that.
Yes,
I
yeah,
didn't realize that.
yeah. Yeah, we've been,
Tough.
I think, in existence about 7 years now. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought you raised your hand, sorry. I was like, yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts about like disconnection and like the shame piece and how we can like get in our heads and
Well, I think you need to realize that, we're all this working together, both the center staff, we've got docents, we've got a broader community that reinforces what we're trying to do here. And that's why it's so important. Because we're in a particular time and place. There's a lot of anger, hostility, trying to
Yes.
pull us apart.
yes,
And what we're trying to do is pull people together that they can face and do something about some of the things we're concerned about, like human rights, treating people fairly,
yes.
giving them opportunities.
Yeah, if you get angry at this parent for the things they said and like, no, but this is a part of human rights and we're disconnecting. We're not staying together and the goal and the focus, like, okay, so he might have hatred towards this community or have biases or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's their business. You all are going to keep doing what you all do and continue promoting human rights for all humans, not only if they identify in certain ways. And so responding out of a way of like, you are welcome to come and talk to us. Like, please, we would love to like have a conversation. And like, this is who we are. We believe in human rights, and that includes this community.
That's good.
Yeah. So keeping that connection, you're right. We're so divisive right now, putting each other in boxes and breaking apart. And we're just perpetuating all of these things that have happened in the past. We have to keep trying to find ways to like, come together, stay connected. Which is not easy right now. It's very easy to be angry at a lot of people for a lot of things. But not helpful, not for our end goal. Our end goal is human rights and respect of each other. And just one last thought for you all, to really, really, really make sure you're taking care of yourself. Self-care is like, of course, like the big lingo that's everywhere. We often talk about community care. So making sure you're taking care of each other as a team, so that you don't get burnt out, you don't get weighed down by all the topics that you're talking about and educating our community about. And also then like getting to the point where you're angry and you're blaming the parents or this person didn't do this right. And so instead taking care of yourself and really realizing that this is hard work that you're all doing. And we're so appreciative of it, that there's people that are stepping up to do this. And so really making sure you're caring for yourselves after a tour. You just talked about really heavy things. Making sure you're finding ways to then release and unwind. And maybe that's going for a walk. Maybe that is yoga. Maybe that's connecting with someone because you just talked about a horrible thing that had happened in the past. So finding ways that you can get back into that green space.
Any more questions from the people?
So I have a comment.
Yeah, please.
Come on.
So this is Susan Curtis. I think maybe we should just suggest that the center provide us with a coupon for a massage on a regular basis. And because that would really be taking care of ourselves, you know,
Yes.
just a little lighthearted thought there.
I
Lighthearted.
would 100% agree with that. It's connection with another person.
Yes, yeah.
It's relaxing.
I
It's
like
your
it.
body.
Excellent.
It's a great idea. Come on, it's a great idea.
It is.
Absolutely.
Celebration.
We should get together and drink beer or wine.
Yes.
Listen to music.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the last slide is just a couple people that are like either they do podcasts or like YouTube videos, different things that are kind of my go-to people to learn from. There's many people to like thank and to think about. These are just the teachers, like the more formal teachers that I connect with. So I thought I would offer them to you all. They're great people. They do a lot of really good stuff. Yeah. Any final thoughts or questions or connections that you all need to do for each other?
Honestly, I would like to invite you and your staff, your colleagues to shut down your office and come for a tour and then give us your feedback.
That would be
We
great.
could stylize, pretend like you were seventh graders, or eighth graders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then get your-
officers.
Or police
Yeah.
officers, yes, and then get your feedback. I really think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, that's a great
From
idea.
our, you know, from our working place that.
Yeah.
I just don't want to give you the tour.
Nice.
I might say the binary. I don't know how to use it.
Go exit this so you can see the team.
Let's see those guys.
There we go. There they are.
Hi, they can't see us.
Oh, they can't see us. Let me turn the video back on. There we go.
Hello. Wait.
You know, show everyone. Ah,
There you all are.
Hey.
yeah. We really were here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Well, yes, thank you so much. We appreciate it. I think we all took away some knowledge, tips that we can easily incorporate into our tours and definitely gave us points of reflection and the words that we choose to use. And so we do have, as a thank you, a little gift card for you and these little gifts. So thank you so much. But thank you, and thank you all truly for all the work that you're doing and like working individually and like with groups like that have survived many of these things that you're helping to really educate our community about, so that hopefully we don't just keep perpetuating some of these things. It's so important, especially in a fairly white, fairly homogenous community, that we're really talking about these things. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you for all you do.
All right.
You did this for the learning lab. That's how we learned about it.
Oh,
Yes.
So next month, it will be, I think, I can't remember, June something, first Thursday, and we'll meet again at our regular time from noon to 1:30. And again, we'll do a hybrid model as much as possible. And just thank you all for the work that you've done and are doing, and take good care during this next month. Until the next time we see one another. So get out there and support all those, support Idaho
Yes,
Gives.
Idaho Gives. Yeah.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks,
Everyone, see ya.
Take care, safe travels, Paul.
Right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.